Hey everybody, I'm Amber, and Maddie is going to be watching this before you, but kind of with me anyway. And Maddie and we're Witches Talking Tarot. And today we're doing things a little bit differently. We have another story time episode, actually, two story time episodes for you. We're having to do things a little bit differently. So I'm going to read my story, and then Maddie is going to give her feedback, whatever that may be, about that story. And that'll be your Tuesday episode. And then for Thursday, Maddie will be reading her episode to me, or her story to me, and I will be reacting because we have a sick baby. And so we just want to make sure that the sweet baby is quite comfortable and taken care of so she can get better. So we're just trying, it's a little different, and we hope you like it. So without further ado, I call this the gifts of the gods. Up on the hill. Hold up. Sorry, guys. It's a little bit of a different setup without Maddie here, and my limbs are not long enough to touch buttons on my computer, apparently, from where I'm currently sitting. Up on the hill, she stands in the shadows of the trees, the deepest recesses of darkness on a snowy winter's night. The street light illuminates the three-way crossroads, the Y in the road, if you will. Snow blows through this bright sphere and catches the light, shimmering glitter sprinkled across the night sky. The entire effect makes it look like a snow globe to her, and pulling her dark, swirling hair away from her face, she watches the glowing bubble intently, as though she were anticipating something to happen, which, of course, is exactly what she is doing. Suddenly, and not far away, a rhythmic crunching noise blows in on the icy wind. She prefers a hypnotic rhythm, but this one is jarring. The man approaching is moving fast and hectic. The icy wind is cutting through his thin coat, and he is trying to get out of this cold. She throws her head back and laughs at the idea. Out here, there is nowhere to go. The whipping wind and snow steal the noise and carry her laughter up and away, replacing her dry amusement with more snow. A fresh gust of wind brings a blinding wall of white to the crossroads, further causing the scene before her to appear like a gigantic snow globe. And the man walks right through this wall of snow to center stage. He is at the crossroads. The rhythmic crunching of the snow beneath his boots ceases as he comes to a stop. Pulling on his lapels, he tries to wrap his coat more tightly around him to keep out the cutting wind as he eyes his options. Here at this crossroads, the storm has become too thick. One cannot see clearly any way the road runs. He looks to the left. He looks to the right. He turns and looks back down the road he just came. Everything is a white whirlwind against an obsidian backdrop. Before he realizes what he's doing, the man turns from one direction to the next repeatedly, effectively spinning in a circle over and over. The woman on the hill watching it all unfold laughs and claps her hands in delight. This is what she has been waiting for. An opportunity for the games to begin. The wind picks up the sounds of her joy, and the building cacophony absorbs them, not allowing the noise to make any purchase in the howling vortex blowing through the crossroads below her. Not allowing him to hear his observer, not giving him any opportunity to know he is not alone at this crossroads. After several rotations, he stops. He has become aware that he now has no idea which way is forward, which way back. The snow has filled any footprints he left coming to this crossroads, and after turning around so many times, he is completely disoriented. Exactly as she wants it. As he stands there, vulnerable and dazed, she scans him. Questionable morals, regrets, and arrogance. Yes, she decides. There is definitely an opportunity with this one. Hecate gathers the deep red velvet cockles of her dress and glides down the hill to present herself to this man. Hugging himself for warmth, he feels a shadow overtake him, and he looks up to find a dark figure descending upon him. He cowers and tries to shrink in on himself. There's no protection around, nowhere to hide. He very much doubted he could make it up to those trees on the hill, let alone make it up there before this thing could snatch him up. So of course he does what any man would do. He straightens his back and moves his arms out front, fists at the ready. This way he'll be ready for whatever this is striking down on him. Eyes wide with terror, but trying to pretend it's indignation, he watches as what seemed like a menacing beast changes the closer it gets, and now appears almost like some Mary Poppins floating down from the sky. Dark red skirts and a black cloak swirl among the white snow, and ivory legs that dangle in the air. The man's stance loosens and loosens, the more his confusion sets in. As his assailant floats gently down to alight on the snow-covered ground, she looks like an old grandmother. Her salt and pepper hair is long and wavy, tenderly riding the waves of the wind as though she were bobbing in the ocean. Fully dumbfounded, he has laid his arms to rest at his sides, hands slack, no fists in sight. His jaw is slack as well, staring in disbelief at this kindly old lady who has quite literally fallen out of the sky. Gotta take a sip, y'all. Okay. Her blue eyes twinkle with amusement, and the crepey skin around her eyes crinkles as she smiles at him. Her smile is full of benevolence, but her eyes, well, those gems are full of mischief. The man is thrown off, but not so much as to miss the look in her eyes. He's still on edge. This Christmas Eve just got worse than it was, and it was the worst Christmas Eve he'd ever had up until this point. Rodney, awful cold out tonight. Why are you traveling so sparsely? She asks sweetly, and then cackles at her own joke. How the hell does she know my name? Why did she laugh like she knows the answer to her own question? Why the fuck did I think I could storm out of there without grabbing my trench coat and hat and gloves? Rodney's mind is a raging storm of questions, his head spinning as fast as the mini tornadoes of snow dancing around in the illuminated globe. Hecate smiles sweetly and tut-tut-tuts at Rodney. She gently shakes her head back and forth, a small smile curling her lips and touching her eyes. In due time, my child, in due time, all of your questions will be answered. Perhaps even the question as to why you would think you could make it home after storming out of that wonderful and warm party into the snow without taking the time to get your coat and scarf and hat. Oh, yes, and your gloves too. But honestly, the scarf probably would be more beneficial against the wind. Don't you think? She made eye contact and smiled at him, and even perhaps give you an answer to the questions you haven't asked yourself, like, why didn't you go back once you realized your mistake? Her smile grew wider with each word, and now it was an exaggerated, almost monstrous expression across her face. Her eyes seemed to become darker blue as she spoke as well. With each word, they seemed to become more and more like endless pools. I suppose I'll find out the answer to that question as well, Rodney thought sullenly. Yes, you will. And perhaps you'll learn more than you could imagine. Perhaps you'll grow a bit. Perhaps you'll start asking yourself why you aren't as terrified as you should be. As she said this, Hecate's teeth seemed to become pointed, her lips unnaturally red, the veins under her skin visible in their blue and red hues. She looked ancient amidst her whitening hair, swirling with the snow, blending in and then stringing out again. Rodney's expression immediately turned from indignant to horrified. She floated up above him, her dress billowing and her black pointed boots suspended in air, a terrible smile engulfing her face. Ah, yes, that's more like it, Hecate cackles as she swoops in and pulls him into the air with her. She holds him in front of her at arm's length, and they spin up into the snowy night. Rodney is terrified, looking around and down in sheer horror, the ground rapidly disappearing until they are themselves a globe of moving air in a sea of white. Nothing to be seen but the dark night and the circling snow. The only place Rodney does not want to look is into Hecate's face. However, soon that will not be a choice. Up into the night sky, above the snow, Hecate slows. They settle somewhere between the heavens and earth. Rodney feels weightless and is pleasantly surprised to find that he can breathe up here. He looks around in wonder, in awe of this amazing vantage point, still very, very careful not to look at her again. He just doesn't know if he can bear the sight of her. Up here it seems clear. All there is down there. But you seem not to be able to see that which is right in front of ye, she says, and spins Rodney so they are again face to face. The terror overtakes him again, and he shivers with fear. Yes, my boy, you seem to know now to be terrified. But where do you hide these things when I do not force them out of you? Do you not know that you are merely a tiny man in our large world? But you live your life in a way as to throw everyone around you away, to treat them as small and insignificant. How do you know this? Who are you to think you know me? I'm a good man. No, I'm a great man, and no one deserves anything from me, Rodney yells, allowing his pride to overtake his sense, as he was prone to do. Hecate laughed her terrible laugh in his face and opened her hands, allowing him to slip from her grasp slightly. Rodney yelps and grabs onto her. I know your mother, the mother of all mothers, who has been forced to weave your thread as you make your way through the tapestry. And my child, she does not like what she sees, nor do we. So tonight, we give you the opportunity. We give you the gift of opportunity. We allow you to travel your thread, see the whole web, and perhaps create a different image from what you have stitched thus far. And they were back at the center of the crossroads once more. Rodney's knees are knocking so loudly from both the cold and the fear. The sound is audible above the roar of the wind. Wide-eyed, he looks around in amazement. Where there were stars all around, there are now the distant trees up on the hill above the whitewashed, snowy scene. Rodney shakes his head. I must have blacked out or something, he says to himself. A bewitching voice behind him speaks out. Oh no, my child. You did nothing of the sort. You are very much still with me. For the moment, anyway. Hecate's voice is benevolent and smooth, in stark contrast to the stone-cold way she was yelling at him. Rodney stops shivering as around his shoulders a thick wool cloak appears. We can't have you freezing to death on your journey. What lessons could you learn then for this life? She half smiles at him as she makes her way to one of the roads off the fork. She beckons he follow with a motion of her hand. You will travel this road first. You will see where you came from and perhaps where you went wrong. You will heed my words explicitly. If you stray from this path, my cloak returns to me. And who knows whether it will take anything with it. Magic has a mind of its own, you know. She smiles sweetly, a thin veneer over the menace undulating beneath her skin. Hecate points down the path, her black cloak billowing out from her arm with the wind, appearing as though they were flying. Again, Rodney thinks. He isn't sure if he's imagining this or dreaming it, and surely doesn't know if he really felt weightless with the stars, or is freezing to death in a ditch and enjoying quite the show on his way out. Only time will tell, I suppose, my child. But you had better be on your way if you have any hopes of making it home tonight. There are 3 roads you must travel, and this is but the first one. Rodney begins to object. How is this witch reading his mind? But with the snow, she blows away, leaving 2 very deep boot prints in the snow where she had just been standing. Warm woolen cloak wrapped around him, Rodney begins down the path, really for no other reason than his desire to retain the cloak. Whether it's real or fantasy, he keeps warm if he keeps moving, and he does not want to be that kind of cold ever again. Her work done for now, Hecate watches his advance up the path and glides up her own path to rest amongst the trees once more, to watch over the crossroads. She smiles as she hears the crunch, crunch, crunch of his boots in the snow grow fainter as he moves away. Rodney takes each step mindfully. Not knowing this path and it being covered in snow, he fears catching a hole or a rock and hurting himself out here in this wretched storm. I really should have just gone out, had a cigarette, and gone back to the party after I cooled off, he thinks. I could have at least gotten my coat and everything before making my way home. Can't drive, too drunk, and don't want to wreck my nice-ass Mercedes. He shakes his head ruefully at the thought. Why did Allie have to hug Jacob like that? Why didn't anyone tell me Molly and Jacob were together? Ah, look into the whirlpool in the cauldron. Perhaps you may find your answers there within. Take care not to get swept up, for the cauldron of transformation is indeed powerful. The woman's voice startled Rodney from his self-pitying thoughts, and he jumped back, nearly throwing the cloak off his shoulders. What are you doing out here in the storm with a cauldron? How does your fire not blow out? Rodney cries out in bewilderment. Are those truly questions you want answers to? I think not, Caradwyn immediately responds. She does not look at him, just gazes into the swirling colors in her cauldron. They ripple into each other, a roiling liquid that appears to be alive. The liquid emits a gentle glow that illuminates Caradwyn and Rodney, but not much else, placing them in a bubble of gentle yellow light that the snow deftly avoids. Knowing the warmth from the bubbling cauldron and burning fire would mean the end of the flakes, the snow sweeps all around, riding the colder waves of air just outside the circle of light. Rodney could feel it. He knew it. The night was alive. Or he was dying in a ditch from frostbite or hypothermia or whatever. He saw on some show once, you hallucinated and thought you were getting warmer when you really were freezing to death. So whatever. He figured he is just going to go with this. Fighting seems disadvantageous, and Rodney is always looking out for what's best for him. Shrugging his shoulders, Rodney leans forward and gazes into the cauldron. Look, lady, I don't want to be rude or nothing, but I don't know what questions I have you're talking about. I mean, as Rodney's eyes fill with wonder, he faintly hears Carowin's reply. Oh, my child, I believe you do. Rodney is swept into the whirlpool. It's like a whirlwind. He doesn't feel wet, but he does feel himself being swept away. And there he is, age 12. He and Jacob are playing tag. There's Molly, sweet Molly, watching them and laughing. Feels all warm and gooey for about 2 seconds, and then his anger returns. What? Was she just working both of us for all these years? See which one works best for her? What? Rodney feels something hard hit him on the back of the head. He looks up and back, and the giant image of Carowin is above him. From the waist up, she's outlined in a black circle and reaching down with that spoon she was stirring the cauldron with. What the hell, lady? He shouts up at her and receives another whack, this time on his outstretched hand. What the? Rodney hollers in confusion. How are you going to learn anything if you don't pay attention? Stop being so wrapped up in yourself and take a moment to get wrapped up in your life and everyone in it. It's not the cauldron of being a douchebag. It's the cauldron of transformation. Dumbfounded, Rodney stares at this giant lady in the sky and nods the affirmative. He has no fucking clue what is going on, but that spoon hurts more than his mama's wooden spoon did on his backside when he misbehaved. So, oh, and stop calling me lady. The name's Carowin, Rod Todd, Carowin said and stirred her spoon in the sky. Suddenly, Rodney was in a very familiar yard. There were snowmen and piles of snowballs. He heard all his cousins and neighbors laughing. Rod Todd, come here. Come to Mommy. Rodney whipped around at the sound. He couldn't believe his ears. His mother had died the Christmas after this one he was visiting. He hoped he was just visiting. Before he could have another thought, he whipped past himself, smiling and laughing, quickly slipping his red mittens on so his mom wouldn't know that he was playing in the snow barehanded. Rodney looked at his mother to see she was laughing and rolling his eyes as she watched him think he was being sly. When he reached her, Allison knelt down and placed her warm hands on her son's ice-cold cheeks. Rod Todd, I have hot chocolate and warm cookies inside for you and your friends and your cousins. Make sure little Jacob gets some cookies before all the bigger kids eat everything away. He looks up to you as his protector. Please love him as dearly as I love you. We are all he has in this world since his parents passed away. Rodney feels a tear roll down his cheek, and he wishes once more he could feel his mother's warm hands on him, cupping his face and talking so close, so he could smell her. She never wore perfume. She just smelled like love. He watched and he remembered. In that moment, he knew he had resented his mother holding him close and embarrassing him in front of all his friends and the older cousins. Their daddy had struck oil, his parents had always said. So they were rich and spoiled, and little Rodney had hated them for getting everything they wanted. He and Jacob had to do everything they said. But Rodney also wanted to be like them. He wanted to tell everyone what to do. But his mom was always ruining it, telling him he had to watch out for Jacob and be his protector, but not be in charge of him. Rodney wanted to cry out to his younger self. Tell him to hug mom, love her, cherish the little time he would have. But instead, he had to watch the whole thing unfold. Little Rodney shoves Allison away. Stop telling me what to do. I'm the man of the house. Everyone keeps telling me that. So stop embarrassing me. So stop acting like I'm some little baby like Jacob. I don't even like him. And I'm not your little Rod Todd. My name is Rodney. You named me that. You should know. Little Rodney rips off his outerwear and storms in, not knowing in that moment he was walking away from his last childhood Christmas, his last game of snowball fighting. The last time he would ever get to have his mother's Christmas cookies. He stormed away to his room, leaving both his mother and Jacob crying, and everyone else calling him a big fat jerk. I didn't know. I didn't know, Rodney cries into his hands as the image of his mother crying disappears into the swirling colors. He wipes away the tears to the sound of tinkling laughter. The most precious laugh he's ever heard. Okay, second most. When Allie laughs, his whole world is right. Or it used to be. The swirling colors clear, and Rodney sees Molly. She was so young, bright and cheery, and 18. She's dancing in the falling snow as she calls out, "Come out and enjoy this beautiful night. Work should be over and done. Now it's the time for fun. It's Christmas, my love." Rodney watches as this scene too unfolds before him. 18-year-old Rodney sticks his head out of the window Molly is dancing in front of. He laughs as he watches her dance in the courtyard with falling snow all around her. She looks like an angel, Rodney thinks. 18-year-old Rodney, however, seems not to notice so much. "I'm almost done. I have to finish the paperwork, and then we can go to the feast," he says. The daylight fades as Molly dances, and Rodney finishes his paperwork by candlelight. Slowly, the light fades as each candle is blown out, and Rodney steps out of the darkened doorway, looking dashing in his suit. Molly squeals in delight and runs to him, arms outstretched. Rodney sweeps her up into his arms and spins her around while they both laugh in delight. "On to the evening's festivities," Rodney proclaims, seizing Molly's delicate gloved hand and charging down the path away from his uncle's office building, heading to the heart of downtown where their Christmas party awaited. Rodney watched himself and his young love disappear into the snow as they moved further and further down the lane. He heard them talk cheerily about their plans for the holiday and the future as they faded away, and he felt a cold tear run down his cheek. The spoon stirs the air above his head, and now he's at Allie's first Christmas. She toddles back and forth between Rodney and Molly, her tiny little laugh like the sweetest jingle bell in the world. When she reaches Rodney this time, she squeals and grabs his face with both hands, her tinkling laughter ringing out after her squeal. Rodney still feels the same warmth spread through his body as love floods his entire being. So much love for his little girl. He intends to do everything right by her. Rodney can feel himself thinking the same thought as the former version of himself in this same moment. Whack! The wooden spoon cracks him in the back of the head, and he reels around to find himself back in the circle of glowing light by the fire and the cauldron with Carowin. "Well, what happened then? Why didn't you do everything right by her?" Carradwin asks while pointing that damn wooden spoon at him. "Huh?" Rodney asks, rubbing the back of his head in a vastly exaggerated gesture. "What do you mean?" "Don't you play with me, boy. I know all that happens within." What? What are you even talking about? Rodney can't tell if she is really knowing his thoughts or if she's playing some kind of game with him. "This is no game. This is the cauldron of transformation," she says with an air of authority. "Well, here's hoping you learn something," Carradwin says, stirring her pot. Colors shoot up into the dark night sky, splitting the snowfall as they move up. Rodney watches the colors as they rise into nothingness, and when he looks at his own level again, he finds he's back at the Y in the road. Hecate says nothing. She points down the path she wants him to walk next. Tired and cold, emotionally sapped, Rodney shrugs and heads down the path without a word of protest. His feet make no sound as he trudges down the snowy walkway. The attacking white flakes swirl around him and settle upon his cloak, causing him to blend into the snowstorm until he disappears from Hecate's sight. She smiles and whirls her hand around in the air, causing the flakes there to speed up and move faster than the wind. She laughs as she walks back her hill, still whirling her hand round and round in the air. Rodney feels the wind pick up, and before he can think to react, he feels himself swept up into the wind, feet off the ground, cloak billowing out behind him. He squeezes his eyes shut tight, fully terrified. He can feel the icy wind whip across his face. It's so fast it feels like it's going 100 miles an hour. His stomach is fully residing in his gut now. He feels like he's going to shit himself and blow chunks at the same time. Rodney figures that he is having one hell of an end-of-life death trip. So why not enjoy it? With great effort, he finally opens his eyes. When he looks down at his feet, fully expecting to see the world spinning below him, he finds the red wooden floorboards of a vintage sleigh and a pair of furry black boots right next to his shiny black loafers. The toe starts tapping on the boot closest to his own foot, and with great fear and great excitement, Rodney lets his eyes move up. Above the furry black boots are brown leather pants, tailored to fit their owner impeccably, it seems, by the cut. Next is white furry trim over rich blue fabric. He can't quite place it. Some kind of homespun or cashmere or merino, maybe even Angora, but very finely done. Definitely a master craftsman created this costume. His eyes continue to trail up, and they find the fine blue fabric is a curly wool coat. It is Caracol, a deep voice says beside him, and Rodney turns to look the owner in the eyes. Sorry, he's an indoor cat, but he loves to be let out. And he's an indoor cat, so we don't let him out. He just sneaks out. Apologies, guys. Okay. Excuse me. It is Caracol, a deep voice says behind him, and Rodney turns to look the owner in the eyes. He finds himself face to face with a bear of a man, holding the reins of a sleigh above the clouds, dressed in the most authentic cosplay shit he's ever seen. What is cosplay? The man says in that deep, rich voice. You could skip stones across the water of that voice, Rodney thinks to himself. You don't know how funny that is, but what do you mean skip stone? And what is cosplay? Velis asks, sounding a little frustrated to have to repeat his first question. Rodney just stares in confusion. He is in a sleigh, flying above the clouds, with a bushy, bearded man in a blue coat being pulled by... Is that cattle? He cries out. Oh, Velis laughs deeply from his belly. It does not jiggle like a bowl full of jelly, Rodney notes mentally. Velis laughs even harder. Oh, I love it. I love all those silly sayings. My belly, a bowl full of jelly. He laughs heartily as he shakes his head full of wild black hair back and forth and slaps his belly. It is a solid thud, and Rodney is sure there is no jelly in that belly, but maybe a steel drum. Velis laughs again. Oh, you really make me laugh. Maybe this one not so bad as usual. But look, kid, it is Christmas Eve, and I have a lot to do. So don't make me... Velis twirls his hand in the air, trying to find the words. Punish you for being on the naughty list. He finally finishes and again laughs deep from within. Rodney is so confused. He thinks he must be freezing to death, and his brain synapses have started freezing up too now at this point. That damn Dickens messed the whole thing up, but one page she should have taken from his book was explaining this whole thing, Velis says, exasperatedly throwing both hands and the reins they're holding up into the air. The cattle respond to what they think their god's command is and start ascending even higher into the sky. Ah, "No, no, no!" Velis exclaims and pulls the reins again, this time steering the flying cattle back down to their course through the clouds. Rodney shakes his head and blinks. "What the dickens?" he says unironically. "Oh, oh, oh!" Velis laughs again and slowly shakes his head from side to side. "You really are funny one. I like, but this is my busiest night of year. So let me sum up. You maybe don't ask too many questions since you can't answer any." He purses his lips and side-eyes Rodney as he says this last part, then bursts into laughter once more. "So you're a jolly old elf, aren't you?" Rodney again references the poem "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." Laughing deep down to his core, Velis looks at Rodney as one looks at a child who has just said something that's a little stupid. Maybe you don't understand what maybe you don't ask too many questions means. Rodney is no child, and Velis doesn't want to lose his patience. Not on Christmas Eve, so he doesn't mind being a little rude, you know? Rodney shrugs his shoulders and nods his head in understanding to shut up. So, how to start? How to best sum up? Velis ponders out loud and suddenly, with a snap of the reins, brings his team plummeting down toward the earth. He likes Rodney, but he also likes having fun with them. He figures he can have the best of both worlds. He always does. Rodney has his eyes squeezed shut tight until he feels the sleigh beneath him make contact. He opens one eye and sees they are on the roof of the building. He looks closer to find it is one of his buildings. What I bring is the only cheer these folks. Sorry, I didn't do the Velis voice. What I bring is the only cheer these folks will see this season. They must focus on their survival through the long, dark, cold months. I am always present for them. They know they can count on me, even though they no longer know who I really am. Red is the color of life, so even though they got it wrong, he says, running his gloved hands down the front of his blue coat, they still got it right. Rodney sees a twinkle in his deep blue eyes, like a well, like the waters of life. They seem to flow like the waves in a river, catching bits of light and sparkling them back out. He shakes his head, thinking this must be some kind of trick of his mind. That counts as a question, my friend. I sum up, you shut up. Just listen. Hear me. Hear anyone other than Rodney for just few minutes, Mr. Naughty List. I come once every year when everything seems darkest, and I bring light. I bring hope. I remind them that cycle continues. Unfortunately, you make cycle so long and hard in between. But I digress. I am present. I am present for them and for you too. For all my people. You are all my people. Everything is all connected. And that's how this all began. One night such as this, so many millennia ago, before the great flooding, I took break at Crossroad. It is my place, but it is the place of others as well. Hecate happened to already be there. She liked it a lot. She planted those trees, nourished them from seed. She likes to spend time with them, find out what they've been seeing. Odin and Caradwin were there as well. I have totally fucked up my Velis, but sorry, guys. Like I say, it is place of others and me. We all sit. We share Nog. And Hecate says she has project for us. We all know the mother of all mother has weaved as long and is concerned for many threads. We allow you to create your pictures, but we see all. Mokosh, mother of all mothers, knows what tapestry is. She has weaved it from energies, but it is the choosing of you, of people like you. So we each get assigned, or not. Maybe the others chose, but I am the present because I am. And Hecate plucks threads she sees fraying. She gives you chance to see, to fix. Too many frayed threads, the fabric of everything will come apart. You get chance to see in cauldron of transformation. Maybe you get stirred up, maybe you boil out. Maybe you get swept up and fly high. Maybe you deliver justice. Maybe it is served to you. You see all four of us, but Hecate just picks you. Then the rest of us deal with you. Dickens, he messed it all up, but not surprised there. He obviously learned nothing from this night. And then, because he's a Dickens, he wrote us all out of his damn story. The only improvement he made was Marley explaining the whole exercise to Scrooge, Bella sighs. Hecate thinks it's funnier this way. Rodney is still looking puzzled. Have you really never seen A Christmas Carol? I mean, I get not reading it, but like every other Christmas movie you people make is the plot of that damn book. I bet Hecate regrets ever trying to fix that frayed thread. Velas throws his head back and laughs at his own joke, the sound rushing out of him like a river. He laughs harder as he sees recognition dawn on Rodney's face. So I'm dying then, Rodney asks. You and your damn questions. Always asking, never answering what a cosplay is. Velas shakes his head back and forth in disappointment. You don't honestly expect me to believe that I am in A Christmas Carol, Rodney scoffs. Of course not, you fool. Do you not listen? Did you not hear anything I said? He wrote it all down wrong. The only thing he got right was the thing we don't even do. You're not in A Christmas Carol. You're experiencing what inspired it. With that, Velas flashes a wide smile, white teeth in stark contrast of his salt and pepper beard. He seems to strove in and out of reality before Rodney's very eyes, further convincing Rodney that he fell down in the snow somewhere long ago and his brain is finally starting to die. After about 5 minutes of the strobing, Velas flicks Rodney on the forehead. Why do you keep thinking you're dying in the snow? The cloak is incredibly warm. I know. Mother Mokosh herself wove it from the fabric of space. There can be nothing more exquisite to touch human flesh than this cloak. Did you not hear me about present? I had to take care of my business before we move on. Because of greedy lords like you, my beloved people struggle and live with strife. I must take care of them. They are my life. Maybe you figure out how it is your business too, but you'd have to listen for once. As he says this, Velas flicks his wrist and up and away they go. Rodney can barely catch his breath before he sees they are again landing on a building. Another building he knows, much more intimately, the building that still contains his outerwear and family. Here they do not need present as much as they need presence. Hopefully, this year that can finally be my gift to them, he says and snaps his thick fingers. They are no longer in the sleigh, but in the doorway of the living room. Rodney watches as Molly cradles Allie. Everyone is singing A Christmas Carol. Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Rodney is overcome with emotion, and he turns away from the scene, a lump in his throat and tears in his eyes. Velas places a large hand on his shoulder comfortingly, and then spins him into an embrace. His large arms envelop Rodney, and he feels like little Rod Todd again. He melts into the broad, muscular chest. He sobs hard, then pulls in a large breath. It smells of the forest in winter, cookies his mother made, his father's leatherwork gloves, and Allie's first curls. Rodney dissolves into tears, and Velas hugs him tighter. He is completely present in this moment, just hearing what Rodney needs, even when Rodney cannot. Rodney looks up into those blue pools of eyes and feels himself bobbing in the ocean. He feels weightless and warm. He feels held and connected. He flows like water. And he is back at the crossroads. Hecate is already there, no longer full of good humor, ready to play with him. She points down the last path. Rodney is numb in this cold and obeys her command without a word or even a look of discontent. Hecate smiles. Maybe he is getting it, she thinks. Rodney trudges along in the snow. He begins rubbing his fingers along the edge of his cloak. He feels there is fine embroidery there. The snow is so white it makes the night glow, and Rodney can easily see the fine stitchwork. Someone meticulously made this. But obviously, they also made this lovingly, like they put energy into it. A raven lets out a firm caw, stopping Rodney from his thoughts. He looks around and sees two of them circling in the snowy air. Well, that's fucking weird, he thinks. All that fancy schooling, and you can't say anything more educated about two birds of any kind flying in this kind of weather, Odin says, fixing his one eye firmly on Rodney. Hugin and Munin land on Odin's shoulders and look to be whispering in his ears. Rodney is beyond comprehension now. Velas made him believe that what was happening was real. He wasn't dying, but now Rodney again thinks he may be dying. Two fucking ravens whispering in this guy's ear after dude had the audacity to find fault with his vocabulary. It's insane. He must be dying. Go back to when Velas had you in his arms. Find that feeling. Come back here. Forget that these guys talk to me if you need to. They are thought and memory, and very important in this whole scheme of things. How could they all read his mind? How can it possibly be real and not a figment of his imagination as he dies? Hilarious that he punked himself and made himself die while experiencing a Christmas Carol plot. He fucking hates Christmas movies, but okay. Whatever, death, it comes for us all. No, he didn't come for you. He was present. And what kind of an idiot are you anyway, really, Rodney? We are the gods. We have been awareness in the energy since you all decided to leave the vegetable world and enter that of animals. It complicated things, and although it drew you away from us, it made our presence all that much more integral. And again, you're not in a Christmas Carol. You're in the same experience that created a Christmas Carol. Big difference there, bud. Okay, fuck a Christmas Carol then, Rodney replies. What's the right way to go here? What do you want from me? I know I asked too many questions, but at least these feel appropriate and pretty necessary. Well, seems you started listening somewhere along the way. Now, if we can get you to see. But you've got it all wrong. We don't want anything from you. We're gifting you with reflection and transformation, presence And lastly, I'll be gifting you knowledge. Are you ready to see? Odin asks. Rodney nods his head in determination. A very long time ago, my son, I gave up my eyes so that I could see and know everything. That which has come to pass, that which is passing, that which has yet to come. This is my gift to you, Odin says, as he walks to Rodney and places his hands over Rodney's eyes. And as long as that story was, I didn't mean it to be, but that's why these are 2 episodes. So Maddie is going to watch before any of you guys get to and give her thoughts, and I'm gonna put it together, and that's 1 episode. And now next on Thursday we'll do the same thing with Maddie's story. So happy holidays, everybody. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, blessed Kwanzaa, blessed Yule. Don't go anywhere. Maddie's now.
Wow, Amber, I just want to say that was brilliantly written. Truly, truly. Sorry, my dog is crying in the background. But truly, that was an amazing retelling of A Christmas Carol. A Christmas Carol is absolutely my favorite Christmas story. Probably right before The Wild Hunt, if I'm being honest with you. But I love A Christmas Story so much. It is and always will be my favorite Christmas story. And you did the story justice. I love that Odin was present. I love that Odin was, the Christmas future, if you will. I love that you have Velis, who is very like ho ho ho, very Santa-y, the ghost of Christmas presents, you know what I mean? But I also loved that Caradwyn was the ghost of Christmas past. And that one, that little scene right there with Caradwyn and going back in time, that actually made me cry a little bit. I can't lie. It was beautifully written, and the Ghost of Christmas Past always gets me in every version of A Christmas Carol, this one included, when the main character, whether his name is Scrooge or Rodney, love me some Rodney, when they go back in time and they see the mistakes that they've made and they're just watching it all unfold, and there's nothing they can do because they're no more than ghosts revisiting the past. And it really broke my heart, and you did it so well. You really, really did. Love that Hecate was the one leading the journey. She wasn't really a ghost. She wasn't one of the past, present, or future, but she was an addition to the story, and it was beautifully written. I love the way that her dress was described, the way that she was dressed, and her hair. The descriptions were beautiful. It was such a wonderfully written story. I'm like, I would read it again if I'm being honest with you. I really, really would, because I really enjoyed it. And I'm not just saying that. Like, I'm really not. Like, A Christmas Carol is my fucking favorite, and you did so well. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your story with us, Amber. It was so beautiful. And I just want to say to our listeners, if you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can find us on Threads, Facebook, and Instagram at Witches Talking Tarot. We're on the X at Classiest Witches. I'm going to give a shout out to Melissa, Pam, Death by DVD, and Victoria. They are awesome patrons. And if you want to support us on Patreon, you can, Patreon, right? You can find us at www.patreon.com//witches talking tarot. Yes, I think I did that correctly. But before I get off here, I just want to say again, Amber, it was a beautifully written story, and thank you so much for sharing it with us, because I think it may be up there as to one of my favorite versions of A Christmas Carol. Thanks, everyone. I think See, I gotta hit the stop recording button again. All right, thanks for sitting with us, First Spell.